pathway to citizenship is simply another name for amnesty. The moment that pathway for citizenship legislation were to be signed, those 12 million people will be here forever. The first reason why this is a bad public policy is the obvious one. We have over 4 million people waiting in line legally, most of whom will never get into this country, who have played by the rules. Those that have jumped the line are going to be rewarded. That's grossly unfair. The second reason is there's no ambiguity in our law. I supported strongly the first amnesty when I started writing on this immigration issue back in the 70s, and no one would pay any attention to it. But I said we had to have an amnesty because as part of a remedy, because our public policy was mixed, was unclear. It was illegal for illegal immigrants to be in the country, but it was not illegal for employers to hire them. That gave sort of a yellow light signal as to whether or not we wanted illegal immigration. I supported that legislation with the understanding in 1986 that that was the one-time and only amnesty. And to get that, we would have employer sanctions pay simultaneously. Since then, we have had 7 amnesties. We've had 7 amnesties, much smaller ones, but we've had 7 of them. In total, 6 million people have received amnesties since 1986. That's an enormous number of people, which if you add that to the 14 million who are here illegally right now, that's almost half the foreign-born population of the United States in the country right now entered illegally, defiance of our law. That's a mass indictment of our state of our immigration policy, a mass indictment, and basically it's because of lack of enforcement. So there's no ambiguity in the law since 1986. There's no reason to do this anymore. The law is very clear. That it is illegal for illegal immigrants to be in the country, it's illegal for them to work, and it's illegal for employers to hire them. The third reason why I oppose the citizenship, pathway for citizenship is that basically it's a hoax on the American public. That's why it never gets really debated very clearly. If you look at the way this proposal was set forth before, it said, for example, and as Mark indicated, there's no way possible that any government agency could actually enforce and regulate and do all the things that the legislation says the hoops they have to hop through. It couldn't happen for 14 million people. So we know what would happen because of what happened last time. We had to begin to employ community-based organizations, immigrant advocate groups, all kinds of groups to simply rubber stamp all the applications, and we ended up with mass fraud. But even let's say we actually try to make the people jump through hoops. Do you really believe that this agency would actually be able to enforce whether people speaking English or not? The way the legislation was written, all you had to do was enroll in an English class. You didn't have to pass it, you didn't have to finish it, you didn't have to show yourself proficiency. You just had to enroll in a class and you were already past the English requirement. You had to pay back taxes. Well, most of the illegal immigrants don't make enough money to pay back taxes, so that's a hoax. They will not allow us to put in the legislation that you have to pay Social Security tax, the one tax you couldn't avoid. They wouldn't let that be in there. The $2,500 fine, for example, that was proposed. Again, illegal immigrants don't have that kind of money to pay the fines. It'll be waived, and there were provisions so they could all waive it. Background checks would cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hundreds and perhaps thousands of dollars to do it for each person, which would make this program extraordinarily costly. We forget about what the cost of actually doing the pathway to citizenship would be. It would probably be in the neighborhood of $250 billion once you figure out all these things, if you actually try to do these things. So that's the third reason, that it's basically a hoax what's being put forth. There are no obstacles. The last reason not to do this is the most important of all. Our immigration system is based largely on family unification. To give these 14 million illegal immigrants amnesty will also mean over the next, after they become, if they actually go through the process and become permanent resident aliens and citizens, all of their relatives will be eligible to enter the United States over the next 20 years, 30 years, and far into the distant future. Massive numbers, estimated to be anywhere from 20 to 60 million people, all of them unskilled, poorly educated, and don't tell me they're not going to be enormous costs to local taxpayers and to the local labor market. This legislation is as bad as the legislation of our founding fathers to legitimize slavery, and we're still paying the cost of slavery right now. If we pass this legislation, we'll be guaranteeing the low-wage labor force of the United States will be in surplus in perpetuity throughout the entire next generation.